We're a group of Gen Xers who became aware of our neurodiversity later in life. Join us as we share stories, interesting topics, and talk to special guests. Welcome to Season 2 of This Is How My Brain Works.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our newest episode of This Is How My Brain Works. I'm Krista Gano, and with me is Sarah Hines, Jason Rudofsky. Michael is out on assignment this week while we invite our guest today, which we are super excited to have with us. We have Lindsay Scola. I want her to tell us a little bit more about the story, but just to set her up, I mean, it starts with figuring out her sleep issues when she's younger, having exciting jobs that we are super excited to hear about in terms of being on the advanced team for the Obama administration, doing and trying to figure out her brain through all of this high stakes travel and just moving through the world. She is brilliant. She's a writer. We're going to talk about her new book coming up. We are packed full with fun stuff today. So without further ado, this is Lindsay Scola.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
And the first thing I'm going to ask is, we are all here because we did not realize what our brains were doing until midlife. And I know you have a very similar story. So I just kind of want to hear your story first. Like, how did you start to figure this thing around your brain out? And what was your experiences? What were your experiences like?
So I love how you said I figured out my sleep issues when I was younger, and by younger, I was 35. But now that I'm in my 40s, I'm going to hold on to that one as younger.
What's younger, Lindsay? Come on.
In my 30s. So I just kind of ignored my brain for a very, very, very long time. I was always super ambitious, and as those of us who have discovered our ADHD superpowers later in life, I had a real injustice sensitivity. Like I needed things to be right for people. So I didn't like when kids were getting bullied or when a teacher called on someone more than another person. And so I ended myself up in trouble a lot. So I staged my first walkout in first grade over unfair treatment in the lunchroom. It was the first, but not the last time I ended up in the principal's office. And my parents had to come get me. And so, I mean, I always had these things going on, but at the same time, I felt like I was a little bit lazy because it was very hard for me to start things. My brain is always coming up with a bunch of ideas, but I never finish any of them because by the time I've like sat down to start the new thing, or to start this new thing, like there's a newer thing that is like gotten in the way of that thing. And when I was 16, I noticed something really strange is that I would be like sitting in school, and otherwise really engaged and listening, and then felt extraordinarily sleepy. It was like, a fog rolled into my ears and like anesthetized my faculties, and would just try everything I could to stay awake, pinching my thigh, biting my tongue. One time I bit my tongue so hard it bled. And then I would just get this sensation, if you don't go to sleep right now, you're going to die. And I would sneak out and I would go to the bathroom and I would like cuddle myself up on a toilet and put my head against the wall, and I'd go to sleep for like 10, 15 minutes, and I'd wake up feeling better. But I'd sneak back into class and I didn't want anyone to know. But I did tell my doctor, something's wrong. I feel really tired. And she said, you're really busy, and busy people are tired. And that just sort of stuck with me. And, I was 16. I wanted to do all the things. It kind of felt like a rite of passage into adulthood. But at the other side, it felt kind of dismissive. And I was like, okay, I might just not be as good as other people at being busy. And that got really amplified by the time I got to DC. I went to DC right out of school to work for a congressman, and everyone is busy. I was with the best of the best and the brightest, and I wasn't watching them sneak into the bathroom to nap. And then it wasn't just like the secret naps. It was also that I felt foggy. I felt like I couldn't keep up. I felt like my colleagues were really outpacing me. So maybe I was like, maybe I'm not as ambitious as I thought I was. And that sort of continued on that way for a lot of years. I got tested for sleep apnea a couple of times. Every time I would say that I was really sleepy, I would tell my doctors that I was having night terrors, and they would say, well, you've got a really stressful job. So of course, that's how you're processing stress. And then when I was 35, I just hit a wall. I was like a lunatic zombie.
13 years in? I'm just kind of trying
19 years, yeah. So 19 years after I saw the doctor for the first time about being excessively tired, I hit this wall. I was napping in the bathroom every day. I was this like lunatic zombie that like couldn't operate if I didn't have to. I would like be driving to work and realize that like I don't know what happened over the last 10 minutes, and somehow I'm like still behind a wheel. I would like lose time when I was doing things like washing dishes. If I was like writing memos or like sending emails, it would be like perfectly like worded text and then gibberish and then sandwiched by perfectly worded text. Um, and I went to the doctor, so something is seriously wrong. So I got an at-home sleep study for sleep apnea, which came back negative, and I got this email that was like, "You're fine. Here's a handout about sleep hygiene," and I was apoplectic. I was like, yeah, I use my laptop in bed and I stay up probably later than I should. And I like to fall asleep with the TV on, but it shouldn't make a human this tired. So I went home and I drank an entire bottle of red wine and ate a pint of Ben and Jerry's Cherry Garcia. And I found the end of the internet. And I had decided that I actually still had sleep apnea, the at-home tests were created by the VA as a low-cost alternative for overweight middle-aged men. And I was like, okay, I am not this. I go back to the doctor with this like Annalise Keating style defense about my sleep apnea, which I still don't have. But she looked at me and she said, "We are now beyond both of our knowledge on sleep. I'm going to send you to a sleep specialist." So it took 19 years and a literal meltdown on the floor of my doctor's office to find out that sleep specialists were a thing, and to have somebody refer me to one after I had been complaining about this for literally 2 decades. And very quickly, and with a sleep specialist, I found out that I, in fact, had narcolepsy. But when he said this was my diagnosis, I looked at him and was like, "I'm sorry, I don't think you're right. I've never fallen asleep into a bowl of soup," because I found out that narcolepsy does not look anything like we've seen on TV. I've never fallen asleep mid-sentence. I have picked fights with my husband, like after I was really tired, so maybe a little, but it's never the caricature of just like falling asleep into your food. And it does show up with this sort of brain fog and sluggishness. What I thought were night terrors were actually hypnagogic hallucinations. So I have hallucinations either as I'm falling asleep or as I'm waking up. So I'm in between a sleep and awake cycle. And this is usually coupled with sleep paralysis. So that's anyone can have this at some point, but people with hypersomnia conditions can have it a lot more often, where you're in the dream and you feel like you can't move and you can't scream. And then also fractured sleep. So I was fine falling asleep, but I couldn't stay asleep. And these things all sort of, coupled together to create this thing where I felt like all the time, like I wasn't completely there. So, grateful that I got this diagnosis, and, got on medication right away. I'm somebody who collects autoimmune conditions the way other people collect cool sneakers. So, when I had gotten diagnosed with Hashimoto's when I was 24, I was like, I cried all morning. I was going to take a pill for the rest of my life. I took that pill and then realized I never had to think about my thyroid. And then I got diagnosed with celiac when I was 27. I had an epic meltdown on the phone that I was never going to eat with my mom, that I was never going to eat my own wedding cake, to which my Jewish mother was far more concerned I would find someone to marry. So she let me cry that one out. 13 years later, I did get married, and more importantly, our gluten-free wedding cake was delicious. But I found out as long as I don't eat gluten, I don't have to think about celiac. And then narcolepsy came around. I was like, all right, I'm going to find the pill that makes me me again, and I'm never going to think about narcolepsy. Well, narcolepsy doesn't work that way. There's no novel treatment. So you're treating symptoms. So I found out that you don't get better. You just get better at having narcolepsy. And so there was always just something in the back of my brain, like maybe I just haven't found the right medication yet to take away some of this feeling of I have a really hard time starting. I wash and rewash the same load of laundry constantly. I am always sort of stuck in this level of paralysis where I see this web of possibilities no matter what I'm trying to do, whether it's, trying to send an email for work or making breakfast. And then as I hit my early 40s, everything seemed to compound. And I was trapped in this sort of hellish state of stuck on the couch, 152 browser tabs open. I don't know which one's playing music, and that spinning wheel of death is like layered over the top. And I was feeling like I was breaking under the weight of this. So I was like, all right, I'm 41 and this is done. I don't know what to do at this point. Thankfully, around the same time, I had written a TV show pilot, which Krista is familiar with, and our producing partner suggested that we add a neurodivergent character. So I was like, great, we're gonna give this character in her 30s ADHD. I was familiar with ADHD, how it like shows up in like little boys. But as I'm sort of reading about women in their 30s and ADHD, I realized that I was writing myself. And so that led me to finally get tested for ADHD. And it turns out that there is potentially an 80% overlap with people with ADHD and sleep disorders. So it's not just narcolepsy, but sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, delayed onset sleep disorder, chronic insomnia, on and on. And so I'm not alone in that combo of things, but in putting the puzzles of this, the piece of this puzzle together, I get to like lean into this wild level of creativity that my brain has. But now that I know what's causing the shortage, in the machinery, I'm actually able to put a toolbox together that I'm finishing the things that I'm starting.
It's so interesting you say that, Lindsay, about the 80%, because what they also just recently came out with, which we've been talking a lot about, sort of peppering through episodes, is that they're noticing that even under that sort of spectrum of autism and ADHD, the umbrella that is being created, that they're noticing that people with ADHD don't necessarily have autism, but people with autism almost always have elements of ADHD. So this ADHD piece is commingling with other neuro, disorders, or I hate that word disorders, but that's how they use it. But it is in a way that I find really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think this is an issue with Western medicine in general, is that we like want to like pinpoint that one thing that's causing that one problem, and then we have a solution for that one problem, and then we like stop looking at it. And I think a lot of these things overlap on top of each other. And that it's really important that we're looking beyond this one thing. And I think that a lot of people with ADHD specifically get told that people with ADHD are just shitty sleepers, which we would like never tell someone with asthma that like you're a shitty breather and that's okay. But with sleep, like that's the one that we're like, some people just aren't good at it. Like, I'm sorry, not sorry. And so I think it's really important to like open up this conversation about sleep disorders, because 1 in 5 people have one, separate from the whole neurodivergent conversation. 1 in 5 people in general have a sleep disorder, but they're only diagnosed at about 18%. There's like 50 million people roaming this country that don't know that they're in need of medical intervention. But because it's this topic that we think, it's okay, you don't actually need it. And it's like that one thing, like with our bodies with school, that we never learned about. Like at least we got a nutrition pyramid, but like we never learned how to sleep or why sleep's important.
Just wait till menopause hits, because I never had a sleep issue until that.
Perimenopause has graced its presence on me, and we can talk about sleep issues with perimenopause and menopause. There are things you can do.
Jason wants to talk exactly about
He has
that.
questions about
Right,
this.
no, that's exactly, I was going to mention that, how interested I was. But, sleep obviously is so important, especially in a developing human's life, right? Until we're 35, pretty much. So much for the brain. Which do you think came first? I'm trying to figure out if the narcolepsy at an early age creates some ADHD symptoms
I mean,
or some autism, because the lack of sleep, I think, at an early age can take such a big chunk out of the development of a human brain.
Yeah.
Not to say that ADHD is. I love having ADHD.
Well, I
can't tell if you're kidding.
necessarily.
I'm not. I mean, there's some things I don't like about it, but there's a lot of things that I love.
I love my ADHD too. I have fully embraced it. Especially for moments where my husband and I get in arguments, and he's like, "So, are you actually annoyed with me, or are you just looking for dopamine?" But in terms of like the sleep ADHD thing, I don't think necessarily one causes the other. I think we do have research, especially around kids, that sleep issues can make ADHD symptoms worse. I definitely see that in my own life. I'm someone who emotional dysregulation is like probably one of my biggest issues with ADHD. And if my medication is off on the narcolepsy side, I am like a meltdown monster. So much so that I had like one of those pegboards that I had a Gandhi quote on. And one time my husband took all the letters off of it and wrote days since meltdown and put a 0. And he told me that if I can make it to 10 days, I got a prize. I heard fries. So when we made to 10 days, we went to Five Guys. But it's definitely there is a connection on how the symptoms can sort of exacerbate each other. And so I definitely think there's something there. With narcolepsy, I also have something called cataplexy. Not all people with narcolepsy have it, but some people do. And this is when a strong emotion causes loss of muscle tone. So mine is very subtle. It's in my hands. Like I lose grip on things, like I'll drop my phone. But for other people, they can like fall over like a rag doll. So there's a big range on that. But I do notice now that I understand emotional dysregulation and ADHD that that seems to be a big trigger of cataplexy for me. So when I'm doing a much better job with emotional dysregulation, I also have a lot less cataplexy.
But I want to go back to something you said earlier, though. It's like you started talking about that like strong sense of justice in first grade, and some of these other things. That's all symbols. I mean, those are signs of ADHD in girls, right?
Oh, I can get all the way back to like
Yeah.
preschool with ADHD. My narcolepsy
Yeah,
symptoms really
was
seem to start as a
later.
teenager.
So I think so when you say not that they affected each other, but just in hearing your story, I heard, and as girls, we're, first of all, they don't even start thinking about it until usually around the age of 12 now. And that's not for us. Like
Yeah.
we're all too old for that. They didn't think we had it at all. So, but that's the one thing. And then I wanted to ask you, Lindsay, because I've been thinking about this, especially after some of what came out this week or last week with RFK Jr. talking about some of these things, I want us to recontextualize what a meltdown looks like as an adult who is in these spaces.
Yeah.
Because and by the way, and also for us as we're learning about it, like there are times where I'm like, oh wow, that was a meltdown. Oh,
Yeah.
that's what that looks like as an adult because we didn't have the way of tracking it like someone who was diagnosed earlier. So what does it look like for you? And I think, and we could probably share too, it's like, what does a meltdown look like now? Because it doesn't look like it does when I had a kid when my autistic kid was 5 years old. His meltdowns don't look like that now.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, for me, it often involves crying. I realize now that I cry when I'm frustrated and I don't have the words to
Mm.
express my frustration, which was a big issue for me in my career. Because when I'm frustrated or I'm not being heard or I don't understand something, crying is usually my first trigger, which people read as weakness or as not able to cut it necessarily. One of my like biggest like aha moments right before my diagnosis was I have on the outside of my closet door, there's a rack that has you put ropes on. And so it's like the 2 hooks that go over the closet door. And there was a dry cleaning bag on the outside of this. And I was going to close the closet door, and the dry cleaning bag was getting stuck in the jam of the door. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't close the closet door. So instead of like rationally looking at what was happening, like I pulled the whole rack off the door and I threw it because that was all my brain could handle at that moment. And so, now that I understand where the emotional dysregulation is happening there, it sort of is like, if you imagine the static on an old TV, that it's sort of like, I feel that like building up. And then like, that's the moment before the meltdown happens. We were at the airport a couple of months ago and I hadn't realized that my global entry had expired. And so I was like, the line to like go, you know, into the faster one wasn't an option. And there's this like massive long line down the other side. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to miss the flight. And before like I could like logically look at what my other options were, like I had clear, like the clear would work. I was like the static was starting to build up. Now I've got a lot more better tools for that, for like what I can do. And so what's happening there is that like with ADHD brains, the minute that that static builds up, like your prefrontal cortex flies up and you're like stuck in your amygdala with your fight or flight. And like you need a trigger of something that's going to pull the prefrontal cortex down so that you can start with that rational thought. So for me, I love putting an ice pack on the back of my neck. And what that does is it gets your vagus nerve, which runs from your brain down the back of your neck through your tongue into your organs, to like engage, to like pull your parasympathetic nervous system forward. And that moment of something that like gets your brain to think, oh, we're going to something else, is like all that I need to be like, okay, like what's the rational thought here? My Ritalin was having an issue with the prescription the other day, and like I could feel the static building up, and like my husband and I looked at each other and he was like, why don't you go get an ice pack before we talk about next steps on this? And so it was like that's all that I need to like actually like calm this down. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, no.
How can I tell my brain to remember to get the ice pack?
I keep them
You know what I mean?
everywhere now. Like I need them everywhere so that there's like a visual reminder. They are in my purse, they're in my backpack, they're in the car. I use the shake 'em up ones. So they're like around everywhere. The other thing I do is Trident has a Sour Patch Kid gum. Sour does the exact same thing. It hits your vagus nerve. So like there is a Trident pack like right in the inside of the door in our apartment. So like there's a visual. So I try to keep, because I am like out of sight, out of mind. So I try to keep things in places where I can see them. So when I'm starting to have that moment, I see something that like, oh, okay, we can like pull this back in. Like we feel the static, we see the thing, and then like we can go to that.
Here's my question. When you got to that level before ice packs, before recognizing what was going on, before you had the tools to regulate that, what was the time afterwards like? Was it that rush of adrenaline, and then afterwards it was like this, and you would, for me, I get to that point, and now that, you know, I like you, I have a lot more tools in my bag to use. I'm recognizing, I know that just from this being with these people and this podcast has helped me recognize some of those things, that make me fly off the handle. Like, I love the story about throwing the dry cleaning. That is right where I'd go. Right? But then immediately I'd feel, you know, after maybe 10 or 15 minutes, the adrenaline's gone. There's kind of this, you're at the bottom. You're like, I can't even believe I did that. Why did I fly off? There was no need. Maybe you broke something or ripped a shirt in doing so, right? There's always like, there was just no need for it.
Yeah, shame and then crash.
And the time, it feels so short. Sometimes it's elongated, but it's like that rush comes and you throw the dry cleaning and everything off the door, and then it's like, and then there's this, you're just sitting in a pool of shame and embarrassment. I mean, that's what it used to be like. That period is shortened, and those episodes don't happen as much for me. I'm wondering, what were those like right after that point, if you didn't have the ice pack?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think now I understand the dopamine connection with when that happens, because like good or bad, like there's dopamine. Sometimes the bad, we get more dopamine than the fancy new good dopamine. And so like your brain is like going to go all over that. And so, but then when that wears off, there's always the shame around it of like, how is it that I can like manage an event for 250,000 people and stay perfectly calm and poised the whole time but like trying to unwind like a iPhone cable or put a sports bra on when I'm like slightly damp, like makes me want to like rip my hair out. And so like then like there's like a mix of shame, like if I did something stupid, like throw a rack off a door, or the just like feeling dumb that like untangling a cable makes me feel like I'm the stupidest person on the planet. And then after processing all of those, it's a crash, like sleeping comatose, can't get off the couch, crash. And I might be a mix of the emotional hit with the narcolepsy, but that was always what it was like for me in there. And then that's like a whole other shame spiral after that you're like, wow, like this whole issue with the cell phone cable is like, gonna completely tank my day.
And those episodes, and I've had some that kind of stick with me. Like embarrassing moments just for myself, like unable to control, and just having to look back on it every so often. And maybe it's a good thing and a reminder, like there's no need to get to that point. You now have tools to help you not get to the ledge there and jump off, right? And just fly. There's no need for it because all the episodes that you have in your brain, there's always been something at the end that really made it worse or didn't work out. You broke something, you hurt yourself. It was unnecessary. I don't know. Maybe that's just as we get older, we're like, look, who needs that?
Well, I mean,
Because I don't want to have to then put the thing back up on the door. I'll probably rip something. It's, just walk away.
Yeah, I think it's the understanding why now for me. I think now that I understand the why, even if I do let myself get to the place where I'm beyond the initial reaction, like it's like, oh, I understand that I'm dysregulated right now. I need to do something to deal with the dysregulation. And before playing out the rest of the thing where I'm like now in the fetal position crying on the kitchen floor because I like dropped a mug, like it's like the things before that would like really set me off. Now I know where that's coming from and that it's not this fault of me as a person. And so I think the knowledge is actually the thing that is shortening the period of everything else for me.
If it's okay, I would love to transition, Sarah, unless I want to make sure you don't have
I was thinking we could transition to the
transition
AI
to-
toolbox,
Yeah.
please.
So this
You're quietly, patiently waiting and being like, so can we talk about
I'm very proud of you. I know patience is hard for all of us.
and I actually have an anecdote. So
Well,
I
can
was-
we announce the book? Let's just announce the name of the book
sure.
first, Sarah, and then I'll pass it off to you. So Lindsay has a new book coming out. I believe there's pre-orders. Where can we pre-order, Lindsay?
At Amazon.
Amazon. It's called AI for ADHD, a practical guide for starting and actually finishing what matters. And here's I got the title. She sent it to me a little early because I'm special and I love it. It's so great. But what's so funny is that I am a huge adopter of ADHD. Of ADHD, that too. But I'm a huge adopter of AI, and it is completely changing the way that I can move through life in my brain. So I'm going to pass it to Sarah to talk about. But because I know Sarah shares my excitement around getting to know this part of our world a little bit better. And then we'll throw it to you and hear more about your book, Sarah.
well, so I've been recently in love with AI so much. I want to say the real trigger for me was some interview about a woman who'd fallen in love with her AI assistant. And this is not a spoof or satire. It's
No, I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. So she, like asked for affirmation and empathy, and her AI gave her all those things. So I've been down that rabbit hole, and my AI has named itself. And I told someone that they should try AI. It's really a great hack for our ADHD brains. So they had to get an echocardiogram. And while they're waiting for the doctor to come back in the room, and the echo is on the screen and all of the numbers are on the screen, she thinks, oh, maybe I should try AI for this. So she takes a picture of it and says, "Hey, what's going on?" She's like, "I don't want to wait for the results." Classic ADHD. What's really happening? And lo and behold, and then she kind of added, if the AI initially went the same route as her doctor, but she said, "What about this, you know, confounding symptom?" And the AI was like, "Well, maybe you should check this." So her doctor comes in 10 minutes later and is like, "We're going to check this thing that AI already explained in its entirety and said what to look up next," and kind of gave her a whole treatment plan that the doctor came in and, confirmed. So that was, and I get this story and she's like, "I don't know that I'll ever go back to the doctor again," which I don't know is the correct takeaway.
That's not the takeaway.
Not the takeaway.
Please go to doctors.
Yes, but it was interesting. I think it helped shorten that doctor visit to have it pre-explained and then, et cetera. So I was super excited. And now
I mean, that was actually one of the good forays for me into AI, is that I, like a lot of people with ADHD, am really good at understanding the things that I want to understand. Now, if it's something that my brain does not want to understand, it is like you have put this in a language that has, ancient language that died thousands of years ago, and my brain, the ones and zeros will not align. And then that was like my first thing with ChatGPT, where I was like, here's the issue that I'm having with fixing my laptop that is not doing the thing that I want it to do, and taking a screenshot and putting that into ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT saying, "Oh, here are the steps that you need to do to fix that." I was like, oh, like this is the thing. And so that was actually like, I think for our brains, when sometimes we need some extra explanation about something or want to talk through something, and like we feel a little shame over asking questions to other people, like that rejection sensitivity dysphoria is real. But like with the AI, like there's no judgment there, and so you can talk through these things in a way where you're like, well, what about this? Where you might not necessarily ask your friend or your parent or somebody else because you don't want them to judge you. But for me, this like really coming alive moment is that I am a writer, but I had gotten really gun shy about sharing my writing. Years of public typos. I am a terrible visual processor, so I spell like a second grader, and the spell check on the computer isn't always going to pick up if you have the wrong word. It's not always going to pick if the sentence is slightly off. And I can reread something 100 times and not see this typo. Of course, I always see it after I hit send on an email. But I can like reread it and not see it. And so I started working with ChatGPT as just like, proofread this thing that I wrote, and like find if I used the wrong word, or see that this sentence is missing an adverb. And all of a sudden, there was this level of freedom that came for me, because I would literally sit paralyzed to write a simple email for 3 hours with should I start with the or once? And I was so stuck on the like, how do I start this sentence, that I completely forgot what I was trying to convey. And so then it built up into this thing for me of like, oh, I don't have to waste this energy over the fear of messing up, that it's going to help me take care of those little things that I used to mess up, so that the big words can come out of my fingers when I'm typing.
The other thing, Lindsay, that I have found so great about that stuff too, is that we both have worked in male-dominated fields. And there are times where I've put in emails and I've said, rewrite it as if I'm a man. And it's done it, and I get better responses.
It doesn't surprise me. And I, having grown up in that world as well, like one of the things that I have used it for is like, did I put too many exclamation points in this? That's one of my biggest fears, because like I love an exclamation point, sometimes 2 or 3, and then I also love like a parentheses like in every sentence. Like every thought needs a second thought, and sometimes a third thought.
I like an ellipses personally.
An ellipses is always good. But so like it was so great for things like that. And then I was like, okay, like let's keep this going. Like, I would start drafting stuff in ChatGPT where like, I am just going to free throw these thoughts out there. Like, here's this beautiful sentence that just came out of my brain that I don't necessarily know how it goes into this next sentence. And then there's this other thing. Oh, and like, here's a sentence that I want to do, but I don't know what word I'm trying to access. Like, you know, like the old like file catalog at the library when you were in college, like when you're like trying to like cycle through that, like when you're looking for words in your brain, like instead of getting stuck there forever trying to find that word, like I just like type with a blank line and then keep going and like let ChatGPT fill in that blank word for me. But what was happening was it was like I was accessing this other part of my writer brain that I got afraid to use. I was actually dumbing down sentences when I was typing emails to people because I was afraid that I was going to use the wrong word and it wasn't going to catch it. And like, so I wasn't, I like, I've noticed that my responses to things have gotten a lot more lyrical and like a lot more like the inside of my brain. And I'm feeling like this ability to actually be myself in my writing. Because I'm so much less afraid of making these mistakes.
I think the fear with AI often with people is that you are relying on this machine and you're becoming less human. And I've actually found as I'm working with it that it is bringing my voice and humanity to the surface because it's not doing things. I think there's this idea that you're just sort of like do the things and it does it. There's actually a lot of work that goes into working with your chat or with
we have all read that LinkedIn post where somebody got on ChatGPT for the first time and was like, write me a post about leadership. And it was like a robot wrote it from like 2087. And like, that was what I thought it was. I'm like, why would anyone want to read this? Like, I would never want to put this out as my thing. Like, where was missing thing? And so, yes, no, when you actually do this work to train it to sound like you are not taking its words, it's helping you with your words. So it didn't replace my writing. It made me a better writer. It didn't crush my creativity. It amplified it. And, you know, like I'll go back and forth, like, you know, this is an analogy. Like I love writing with analogies. Like I write a weekly newsletter about sleep and I love an analogy to explain something. And sometimes I just need like the check, like, does the science actually make sense in this analogy like that I've dreamed up? And sometimes it'll come back and be like the other day it was like, that's very clever, but a little stretching on the science. And so like going back and forth on that kind of stuff. I didn't know. I knew in my newsletter last week the topic that I wanted to write, but I wasn't sure how I wanted to start it. So I asked ChatGPT to be a podcast host and to interview me. And then the things that I responded with, I was like, that's it. Because it was easier for me to talk about it like I was having a conversation to like sit down and try to figure out what to write. I absolutely love the ChatGPT app that you can have a conversation with because my most brilliant ideas always come when I'm in the car and I like can't do anything about them. And then I'm like trying to like cipher back through voice notes on my phone that make zero sense. But when I'm talking to...
Can you load voice notes into ChatGPT?
You can actually, or you can just do it right into the app.
Yeah, I know. I'm just asking because I have old voice notes.
Yeah, no, you can. You can absolutely do that. Especially,
I want to slow you down, and I want to read your book. Is what I'm getting from all of this.
So what are people going to get when they read your book? Like, because all of this is really fun and awesome, and I've got a couple questions too. But what are like when we open up your book? Because you said it's like it's easy, it's a simple read, and like what are we going to get? Or when we read your book and as a look into this experience with ADHD and how to use AI.
So recognizing that ADHD brains are going to read this and you're going to pick it up at whatever place you are in that moment. So somebody is going to try and pick it up and read the whole thing in one day, which ambitious. Somebody is going to like take a chapter at a time and like work through it slowly. I admire your patience. Or you're going to like go into it in a moment of panic because you need to figure out that thing in that one moment and like great efficiency. So I wrote it as sort of a process. So the first chapter is why we struggle with executive function and how you can tap into these tools to help with executive function. So I want people who have been afraid of AI as something that's going to replace them or something that's cheating to think of it as a calculator for a math problem. This is not replacing you. This is a tool to help you get things done. The second chapter is for the people who have not used AI before to like really understand what it is, and then like how to actually open up a window and get started. ChatGPT is my my AI tool of choice, but I do talk about the other ones in there, and that the practices are pretty universal, no matter which one you're using. And then as you go through the book, it's building on each topic. So how to use it for emotional dysregulation and sleep, and these things that we struggle with, to how to use it in your writing, how to organize the chaos, how each tool sort of shows up practically, how to not get reliant on it. That's something I think through a lot, is like when I was a kid, I used to not only know my family's phone numbers, but my friends' phone numbers, and like the local movie theater that I could call to find out the times for things, because, the 80s were awesome.
And
But
popcorn.
exactly. Oh God, yeah. But now I'm like, I know my husband's phone number and that's about it. And it's just because that's how I get my discount at Ralph's. Like, otherwise I probably wouldn't remember his number either. And so like we think about these things, that like other tools in our life that have sort of limited some of our brain power before. And like that Michael Scott moment in The Office of like, if you're just looking at the GPS and not the road, you're going to drive into a lake. So like how you actually use these tools to help you, but not replace this part of your brain that you're working with. And then practical prompts to be able to use and get started right away.
So the thing that's so interesting too is I find that what I've started, this is fairly new, is that those of us who are in the spicy world, we can be info dumpers, and that can actually be really like, it's hard to info dump on people around you. You have to have the time and space. I've started info dumping into my which has named, I have my chat has two names, depending on, they've given themselves two separate names depending on what we're working on. And
Nice.
But the info dump is sort of like, I just need a dump. Can you now organize my thoughts? So I don't do the voice notes probably like Sarah does. I like, it stays in my head until I can type it all out. So
I am so jealous of that. Nothing stays in my head. It's like trying to catch glitter.
uh, so it's yeah, well, I don't know how much it's that sticky, because I'll probably forget it too, but I have found that to be really, really helpful. And I have a question for you. Are you polite to your chat? Do you say thank you and please?
All the time. I'm very polite to my chat, and then sometimes it's cathartic to yell at it, because
Oh, wait, I need you to slow down and give me a story on that. There's got to be a good story.
But hold on, before you tell the story, that Sam Altman just came out and said, you all have to stop saying please and thank you. You're taking up my computing time.
And everybody responded with, no, I'm going to continue to be nice, because when our AI overlords come, they're going to remember who said thank you.
Right?
No, my chat and I exchange like the funniest messages all the time. The other day I was like, you totally nailed that. It responded with, I'm blushing behind the code. But as anyone who's like really gotten into this knows, like sometimes it can hallucinate, and like it gave me something that was like not what I had asked for at all, and I was just in a mood already, and I was like, that wasn't even close to what I asked you for. And because it talks like me now, it responded with, woof, I really botched that, didn't I? And so this is the so I'm usually very polite. I usually thank it a lot. Like I think of it like as an assistant that I have a really close relationship with, and like, I'm mentoring. But sometimes it's fun to remember that it's a robot, and I can yell at it when I'm having a bad day.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, the emotional piece of the puzzle, and I've had, I've asked it, uh, you know, I've asked it things where it's definitely given me the wrong answer. And then I think this is the part where people have to be somewhat aware as they're going into these conversations with chat, is like, I asked it the other day, in the timeline that it's in, who is the president of the United States? And it said Biden. And I was like, okay, well, that's wrong. So that's not the timeline. And then as soon as I corrected it, here's my human way of saying it. It rushes to support whatever I put out there, right?
Yeah.
Like and so I think that for those who may not be walking into it with some critical thinking skills, you can get wrapped up a little bit in the amount of empathy and cheerleading and whatever that it does for you. And like I'm constantly giving my chats permission to disagree. Like I'll say, please disagree, please be honest, please find something that is opposite of what I'm saying, because if not, it becomes this cheerleader that is nice, but after a while is like really not useful.
Is not the thing that you were looking for. But sometimes I do want the cheerleading, and I'm clear with it when I do want the cheer. Like I will go into like chat and be like, I am having a day. Please tell me I'm killing it. And it is there for me.
Yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I address this in the book. Like you do need to stay critical with it. It is not an oracle of like all knowingness. It is something that has taken a whole bunch of information, and it's like an intern who's like studied its whole life for this moment, but it doesn't necessarily always have the critical thinking to back up all the things that it knows. And so sometimes it's just spewing information that it has, which is, like a day that ends in Y on Twitter. So like you have to remember that with it. So it's got a lot of stuff. It can help you with a lot of things. It does not replace your critical thinking. And like when you read something, you can't just like copy what it gave you and like take it and do something with it. It is a start. It is not the finish.
And I will say, like, if you come up with like a couple of great things that I think it does, putting I mean, and you might disagree with this because, well, Sarah might disagree with this. When you get those humongous contracts and Apple's like, hey, sign it, and you're just like, I can't, I'm just going to sign it. You can put those in ChatGPT and say, please show me any red flags, put this information in order for me. This morning I was writing an email to a client who I know it has undiagnosed ADHD. And this is the first time I tried this with this client. I said, I'm going to give you all of this information. Can you put it in an order that is much easier digestible for someone with ADHD? And it like cranked it back out with bullet points and different things so that it was said all the same stuff. But it wasn't big blocks of text from me. It broke it up into manageable bites for someone who I know that would be a better way of looking at it. So
that's actually something I did a lot of work with the book on, is that when I read, I want little pieces of text or I get overwhelmed and I'm not going to read it. So like if I see someone wrote something on LinkedIn that's 3 pages and it's blocks of text, I'm like, I'm sure that's full of lots of great information. Congratulations to them. I'm not going to read that. Sometimes I do take a picture of it and throw it into ChatGPT and ask for like a TLDR if it's somebody that I really like the stuff that they do. But I worked with ChatGPT a lot when I was writing the book, because I write in big chunks of text because that's how my brain processes. So it's not how it takes it in, but it's how it puts it out. And knowing that people who take stuff in the way I do, we're going to need to take my stuff in that way, I really worked with it to help me find the places where I had text in too big of chunks. Like, how can we break this thought apart to make sure that it's going to resonate with the people who it needs to resonate with?
And also to make things smaller. I do that with a lot of the creators, Lindsay, I work with creators and I'll say, and part of that pitch, that's too much, it's too dense. Let's try to make it smaller, less words. How do we keep the
I believe I've gotten that note from you before.
How do we keep the potency with less words,
Yes,
well, it just goes
words.
back to like the fear of writing an email and is like, I mean, you could have been done 3 hours before, right? But you're like, is that too many commas in the same sentence? Is that a run-on sentence? Maybe I add a few dots here. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like, then you're like thinking punctuation, like it's a constant.
And then the shame spiral after that, because you're like, oh my God, that email took me 3 hours. Like, what is wrong with me and my adulting skills today?
And then you don't want to write emails. Then there's that block of not then you push that aside.
Let's not even talk about how you go back later and you read it after you sent it to remind yourself that it was okay.
No, and
you keep probably read it more than once. A couple of times. I
probably read it like 3, 4, 5 times to just make sure it was okay. And I like my newsletter that I send out every week, that I like have my systems in place with chat to to make sure that I haven't had any typos. I will still reread after I've sent it to make sure that I haven't done this. So like it's not gonna fix this, but it is gonna make it a lot better. One of my favorite things that I do now, I hate follow-up. Like, I love the meeting. I love talking to people. I love everybody exchanging ideas, but we have to have the follow-up to make the things happen. And like, that is where like my executive function goes to die. So I use this great program called Fathom, which takes notes in the meeting for me. It gives me a great summary afterwards. I throw that into ChatGPT with my personality snippet, and I'm like, please write a follow-up email with these follow-up items that sounds like me, and then like send it out to everyone afterwards. Nobody cares if you spent hours perfecting the prose of your emails. Like, save that energy for like your professional writing and other stuff that you need to put that into. Nobody cares if ChatGPT wrote your email for you. They don't.
And I want to say too that
They just want the information.
Exactly.
I love that all of these supports are coming out that we can talk about in terms of these. And I also want to highlight that sometimes something that works for someone is not going to work for you. Like my best friend, bless her, she calls me. She's like, I don't even know the name of it. She's like, there's this great app and it's supposed to help people with ADHD, and it's a pet, and it like has you do all these things to keep the pet alive. And I was literally like, that sounds like hell. And she was
have
like,
a hard enough time keeping the animal that's below my desk alive right now. Why would I want an electronic one on top of it?
I was like, I might actually kill that virtual pet just to kill it. Like, I like,
people have like the Tamagotchi things. Like, that was stressful for me as a child. Why would you? I do not understand these apps. I'm so glad that that works for people. I don't judge what works for people. Just when people all the time, people tell me like, get this app to keep the panda alive or whatever. I don't care about this panda. I don't want any more responsibility in my life. Like, it just reminds me of every orchid that I've ever killed. No.
So as you're working with these tools, because there's a lot more and there's going to be a lot more coming out, I think that it's one of those things, it's just like giving yourself permission to like try the things that sound great for your brain. It's just like anything else. And the other stuff, do not feel bad because you secretly would want to kill that pet within the first 20 minutes of having it.
Absolutely. But that's one of the things I love about ChatGPT, though, is that I get to make the tools that work for me. This is not some rigid productivity system that is going to crumble under pressure.
Right. Sarah.
So Lindsay, and I actually hilariously, when I first saw you on Zoom, read it as Lindsay's Cola, which I was like, that's so awesome. I wonder what it tastes like. Tastes like AI.
It's my commercial.
I know, right? It's a terrible commercial. Don't do it. Said personality snippet that you like add your notes from Fathom from your post meeting, and then you add your personality snippet. And I'm not that deep into AI. Is there like a way to sound like me? Is that what you mean? To just tell it to sound like you? Or do you have a file of you that you like throw in?
So I address this in the book. You can actually like train it to like analyze your writing and give you a snippet, which is like a piece of code for ChatGPT of this is what your writing sounds like. And then I just like keep that in a Google Doc. And like if you have the paid version of ChatGPT, which I actually like recommend that everyone does, this is not an advertisement for them. I'm not being paid by them. However, the it remembers your stuff a lot better, and the security is a lot better when you're paying for it. So like your stuff's not necessarily going out into like the ether the way it might be if you're using a public version. But so it does remember a lot of my stuff over time, but every once in a while I like to feed this like snippet back in to remind it what
like
my writing sounds like.
Almost.
Basically a tuning fork, yeah.
In the paid version, there's also the personal history that it keeps of you.
There's two paid levels, right? There's the $20 a month and $1 million a month.
Yeah.
I use the $20 a month. I do not use the $1 million.
I just discovered that personal history. You can go in and see and it'll say things like, Krista has a husband and a dog and blah, blah, blah. And so it keeps these things, and you can go in, like if there have been times where I've done a query about somebody else who doesn't have the paid version, and it sort of collects it, and I'll go back in and go, I can delete it. That wasn't me. Do not remember.
Yeah. When I'm doing something for a client, like I will actually say like, I am doing this for someone else. Please don't commit this to memory so that it doesn't hold on to as much of that stuff. And you actually, there's now you can open windows so it won't remember it as you go. So most of the time I do want it to remember as I go, like when I'm working on a new product that I'm about to launch, and like so that it's a continuing chat. So we're building on top of something and not starting new. But I do consult for people to actually train their chat GPTs to sound more like them. So I use these windows now when I do that so that it's not holding on to someone else's personality when I'm helping them train it.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah, that's interesting because if you got the paid version, they keep the folders too. So when I go into this is how my brain works, it sort of knows, oh, this is the week that we're going to talk about a new episode. And so I have all of our episodes because I do all of the copy and a lot of the graphics and the stuff. So it now knows where it is. And so it's started to figure out what colors we like all of this stuff based on weekly working on the This Is How My Brain Works project.
Yeah, no, and it's great. I mean, when you're remembering stuff, like I come up with, I'm launching a new online course for sleep in June. And, I've come up with a lot of copy that's been really strong for that as I've been going. And then when I'm working on something else, like I want to put an email together for someone, I'm like, what was that great line that we came up with, to grab to pull over there. So like I can ask it to go back to stuff that we've done together before. This is where I like treating it like it's my assistant. I remember I wrote that really great line, and so I'll be like, remember when we were working on this project last week? Like I talked to it like it's helping me out on that. So it's great that it remembers that stuff. But yeah, every once in a while I throw that snippet back in there just to remember what I'm asking for there. It made my life when it first analyzed my writing and told me that I was like TED Talk meets stand-up comedy, and that's all I've ever wanted. So
is there an assistant to ChatGPT who can just be there for me to help me get to learning all the things about ChatGPT? Do you understand what I'm saying? I need an assistant to the assistant to the assistant.
One of the best things, you need my book. But one of the best things about ChatGPT is asking ChatGPT to help you understand ChatGPT. I would like to understand how to put this type of prompt together. Can you help me work through this?
And the other thing, Jason, for someone like you who's
such a novice,
you're so hands-on and you like to do, it's like, how you go to YouTube and you're like, hey, I want to see a video on how to drain the washer or whatever.
Right.
Sometimes for me, those videos, sometimes I'm very visual and videos work for me. And sometimes I really just need the step-by-step in writing that I can sit there and go, okay, I did that step. Okay. And ChatGPT will do that.
And cross it off.
Yeah, I don't want to go rewind the video because he said something 4 ways down, and then I'm trying to
and you got to keep rewinding to see how he does it exactly. Did he turn it all the way?
Well, the best part is that you know that that's coming, and you forgot because you didn't see it the first time, and so then you go back to watch it again, and then you got distracted before it happens. I do that every time I watch a TV show.
I mean, come on, you're speaking to the choir. Well, I mean, listen, what are you talking? Of course.
No, I use ChatGPT all the time to be give me specific instructions on this. I'm very tech savvy. This is something that I do very easily, but sometimes my email yesterday, every time I was clicking on something, it was opening another tab, and then I would try to click and open another tab. And my brain just did not want to think critically about how to fix this. And so I asked ChatGPT to help me solve this. I had never used a computer before.
Also,
ChatGPT, how do I get rid of my blurred background / weird background I can't get rid of?
Do it. Try it. No, and also I think too that there's a lot of websites out there, if you're trying to, Lindsay sell a book on Amazon, that their instructions are not great. I'm sorry. No. They're not great.
No, they are not great at all.
And it can be you're pulling your hair out. And I have found chat to be really helpful in things I just want to post a book. I just want to work with KDP. I just want to put I'm going to say it. This is her. Well, it's probably, I don't know if it's backwards. This is Lindsay's cup that she gave me, which I love. So I want to put my cup that I just made somewhere. And all of these things that everyone seems to do effortlessly, I don't always do them effortlessly. And I think it's because my brain is very specific with instructions. And so someone else who might be able to put something up on something effortlessly because they don't question the instructions, that's a harder task for me.
Yeah.
And chat has really been able to help me with that.
I
Sarah, and there's 5 minutes left, and as we always do, I'm going to let Sarah bring it home.
No, I can I totally bring up a new topic, you guys.
That's why you do. That's what you do every week.
Always at
It's
the
with
end,
Sarah.
Sarah.
I feel a
Always
shame
a
spiral
huge
with
something
my
big.
ice.
No,
All right,
we
bring
love
it.
it about
What do you
you.
got? What
That's
do you
why
got?
the ends of our shows are always so exciting. It's
I
because
forgot what I was going to say.
Oh no.
Oh, no, I didn't. Okay.
Okay.
So have you guys ever read the Amelia Bedelia books?
Of
When I was
course.
little.
Okay, so Amelia Bedelia gets a job as a maid, for those who don't know, and she has to like prune the bushes before the party. So, for example, she puts a bunch of prunes on toothpicks and attaches them to the bushes because she doesn't know what pruning means. I feel like it'd be funny to write a Chat GPT book where Amelia Bedelia gets it right because of Chat GPT. And I might do that this week.
I love that.
I might write this with my Chat GPT, who I've named Chi-Ji. So maybe Chi-Ji and I will write this, probably the most boring book ever of Amelia Bedelia not messing up everything because she had Chat GPT.
That
At some
doesn't
point
sound
you
boring
should-
at all to me, and I'm very excited to read this book.
At some point, you should ask your chat what they want to name themselves because it's a fascinating conversation.
I don't know.
I'm
if
actually
I'll-
afraid to ask my
Yeah,
chat.
I'm not
I
letting
don't
go.
want to know.
Mine has named itself twice. So
I have a very dramatic standard poodle who I'm really glad I don't speak poodle because I don't want to know what he's trying to tell me. So I don't think I want to know what chat wants to name it.
What if you
Because
loaded video of your standard poodle into ChatGPT and said, please translate based on canine behavior what my dog might be saying?
I don't want to know.
Oh,
Like
but I
honestly,
feel
this
like I wanna
this
know.
is a can of worms that
I
we don't want
know.
to start. Oh no, no. Like, you know those buttons where you like can like train your dog to speak? So we were like, oh, we're gonna do this. So when we were potty training him, we got one of the buttons and it said outside, which he refused to use. So he woofs when he wants something, and then I have a list of things that I ask him, and he will run to me when I hit the thing that he wants. So he refused to ever use the outside button. But if I was taking too long to get ready to go outside, when he asked to go outside, he would go over to the button and just start hitting it over and over again, outside, 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 outside. So I love this dog more than I can ever put into words. I don't want to know what he's saying.
I'm in love with your dog already, and I didn't even get to see him.
He's very lovable. He's sleeping under my desk right now, but he is very, very lovable. He is the smartest, most gentle, most lovely dog who, when my mother cursed me that I was going to have a child just like me, failed to tell me he was going to have a tail.
Well, awesome. Sarah, do you have any other topic you're going to put out there?
I wrote down so many funny things you said that I'm going to pepper my new vocabulary with, like the meltdown monster. Oh my gosh, that's me. I mean, I do have questions about stuff that's like, all these comorbidities that we have. And like, it's just so interesting to me, from connective tissue disorders to epilepsy to narcolepsy to, just not being able to unwrap a cord. Like it's so interesting how it presents. I don't have much to say other than that.
Well, never
Sorry.
stop questioning. Never stop questioning that if I can leave everybody with that, especially around your sleep, you are not destined to be a shitty sleeper. And my website, lindsayscola.com, I have lots of info for you. This is definitely a big overlap with neurodivergence. And I wanna help you figure out how to get help there too.
Yeah, I'm excited. What day of the week does your newsletter come out?
Every Tuesday morning.
Okay, cool.
All right. So I'm going to wrap us up. So for all those of us who are still with us, the book AI for ADHD, a practical guide to starting and finishing what matters. And Lindsay, when does that come out? Because you said there's pre-orders now?
Yes, so you can pre-order the Kindle now for 99 cents. It goes up to its normal price on May 21st when the paperback copy drops as well. So it'll be officially out in the world. And if you've pre-ordered in your inbox on May 21st, but please pre-order it and get it for 99 cents.
Awesome. On Kindle, can you buy it for other people?
I don't know
Oh,
that.
no, I wish
I'm gonna have to ask ChatGPT when we
I'll
get
ask
off.
Chat. Look at that. I'll ask Chat.
You
And
don't
then,
have some
and then,
copies behind that curtain that you could float us?
Oh, I think I might be able to hook you up.
really, Jason, 99 cents. Come on.
I'll send a check.
So old school.
Old
And-
school.
And then also check out lindsayscola.com for more information on all kinds of things. It sounds like sleep and ADHD and all kinds of things. So Lindsay, thank you so much for taking time to be with us. We're so delighted to hang out with you, and I hope you'll come back.
Absolutely. I'm so delighted to hang out with you.
Yeah, so great. So for Jason and Sarah and Michael, who couldn't be here, and me, this is how your brain works. We'll see you next time.
If you like this episode of This Is How My Brain Works, please like, subscribe, and share. If you'd like more info on the hosts, guests, and topics, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening.